All right. Thanks, guys, for coming this afternoon. Again, we have these every week, so 4 o'clock Central Standard Time. And, the objective here is to provide you guys with sales ideas, with training, with carrier and product updates and things like that to allow you the opportunity to continue to grow. Um, and and ultimately, the objective is to help you help your communities grow. So one of the big things that we'll talk about today is annuities. Annuities is a big staple, and there's a lot of people who just write annuities. They don't write any life insurance, and they do a-okay with it. Why is that? Because a lot of people really just like to talk about retirement and investing and things like that. Not a lot of people like talking about life insurance. So, this is a good topic to know. It is a good topic for any clients between, 30s all the way up to 80s. So it's definitely a good understanding to realize what you can have at your fingertips to ultimately help people retire the way they deserve, rather than the way that sometimes the government is going to have them retire. So, um, as we go through this, the foundation or the idea that we look at from a retirement standpoint, some of the major concerns that a lot of people see is about 64% of people are very concerned about outliving their money. Okay, maybe even more than passing away. So that tells you a lot about the mindset of the consumer. Is I hate to say it, but we're all selfish to a certain extent. We want to make sure that we're protected, and then figure out the life insurance after we're fully safe and taken care of. So, when you think about some of the concerns that you see, a lot of times you'll see investment fluctuation. What did we see earlier this year with talks and conversations about tariffs, and then concerns about Israel and Iran and stuff like that? Not getting political at all, but what we did see from the stock market was massive fluctuation. And so when you talk about a portfolio and you talk about the situation of this type of fluctuation, the damage it can do to someone's portfolio. I'll show you a picture on the next page about what volatility can do to destroy someone's portfolio. So if you think about what happened earlier this year, and you had a client who was very aggressive, and they were in their late or mid 60s, maybe early 60s, that could definitely ruin their portfolio, because as you get older, you're supposed to reduce your risk and go more conservative so you have assets that you will never outlive. The down part too, what we're seeing, recently is some lower returns. Even though returns are never guaranteed in the stock market, you talk about the 90s, you could throw a dart at a wall of stocks and you're going to hit double-digit returns. You just don't see that now. Yes, there are some out there, but in the grand scheme of things, it is a completely different type of market. So how do we provide some type of guarantee for our retirement for our clientele? Also, just kind of thinking in advance, some things like unexpected costs, healthcare is continuing to rise. So 65-year-old will need about 300K in protection against healthcare costs. We can do that with annuities as well. So there are solutions and benefits inside annuities that say if someone is uninsurable, you have the ability to utilize different assets. So this is what I was going to talk about with the volatility and overexposure. So if you'll see about the idea of breaking even, in order for you on this left-hand side, you talk about percentage of loss. You'll look on the right-hand side, what type of return you need after that to actually break even. And it's not 10% down, 10% up is equal. You have less buying power, less compounding ability. So as you can see, if the negatives are a lot higher, it takes a lot more for you to get back to net neutral. And so a lot of people don't realize that, because they think, and we used to have a slide when I was at Corbridge where it would show up 10%, down 10%, up, down, and 100,000 after 10 years actually equaled 95,000, because again, that buying power. So when you look at that, it's not really truly dollar for dollar when it comes to loss versus gain. And so, yes, the S&P does win more than it does lose, the fact of the matter is when you look at that percentage of loss and you look at the time frame in which that person is actually, planning on retiring, do they have enough to break even, or do they have enough risk volatility to allow them to take that type of risk for their portfolio? So, when you think about it, a lot of times when we think about how we can protect people, we want to look at two different really major types of annuities here. We're going to talk about accumulation products and income products, and really, the idea and how we can really protect our clients. But it's all again about protection, mitigating risk. That's what we do best, is we talk about risk and protection. And so when you think about the power of indexing, again, understanding the type of solutions that we offer, a lot of times people like the best of both worlds. So you talk about your fixed, you talk about your variable. So we talk about these two in conjunction can equal a form of indexing where you have a little bit of the best of both worlds, as I said. Um, Now, what I'll tell you right now is a lot of people, as they look at these graphs, they say, oh, shoot, well, indexing is amazing. It's going to be the best thing for my client. And this, sorry, let me back up one sec. This can be a little deceiving as well. So when you look at this power of indexing, to give you an idea of how it works, we look at this chart because you have limited growth potential compared to the open market. Like you could see right here, if I did indexing, God damn it. If I do indexing, what you'll see is I have, 13,000 or yeah, 13,000 in growth on a $100,000 investment. But here, if it was in the open market, it would be 126,000. So you think your client would be a little pissed off if you didn't get them the returns that they were hoping for? Fast forward 24,000, or they could have 51,000. Now they're really mad, right? So, but when you look at the power of indexing and how this goes down and how we're protecting the money, and over time, you'll see here that there was another loss, which creates this gap or protection here. The big thing that I just really want to overemphasize with this is that if you're talking to, for example's sake, a 30-year-old client, a 30-year-old client, if they stuck all their money into an S&P 500, they're going to beat the index over, a 30-year period. Okay. But when you talk to people about investments in general, yeah, I know 2008 was awful. When you talk about investments in general, the big thing that you have to understand is, so this is coming back from my FINRA designations, is that the older you get, the less aggressive you should be. So when it comes to buying power, you have less buying power as you get older because you're looking at more safe and secure vehicles as opposed to aggressive vehicles. Okay. But if you have, say, a 30-year-old client who has some assets that they want to diversify, you think of risky type of investments. We look at, for example's sake, at this chart, you have stocks, mutual funds at the top of the risky scale. You got cash, money markets. These things are considered, you're less aggressive. Okay. I would actually say that bonds are probably on this side over here. So I don't fully agree with this step up chart per se. But, from the standpoint here, when you talk to clients as they get older, that aggressive becomes less aggressive and becomes more conservative. So if you talk to a client today who is in their 30s and they were looking to invest, say, $150,000. I'm just throwing a number out there. I wish I had 150,000 when I was a 30-year-old. But nonetheless, say you have someone who's a savvy investor. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Client, if I could give you stock and bond type returns, not stock and bond returns, okay? So figure the wording with a floor protection, so you have cash-like market risk, you come up somewhere in the middle. I'd like to consider a fixed index annuity like your aggressive conservative. This would be a replacement to your bond portfolio to give you a market-esque return in some years, but you're not going to lose money, and that's going to give you a better value proposition for the future. And so you're not asking for it all. The hard part about us in our industry is that because we only have a few products, some people in the industry will pigeonhole their customer into something that, in my opinion, would be considered a bad investment. You know, part of the asset, maybe not all of it. Maybe you let them take stocks, mutual funds, and go play with that. Or even so, real estate. Some people will talk real estate. I would consider that as aggressive as mutual funds and stocks because it can be rather risky, especially if you don't know what you're doing. So, from that standpoint, just understanding some of the differences in the phrasing and the wording, I always say like part of something is better than all of nothing. So, if you try and go for all, you're probably, if you have someone who is like fighting you about investments, they're probably not going to want to put it in the annuity. So you don't go for the whole thing, you go for some of it. So that's where, the opportunity for you to grow your assets and but also grow your referral partners is you don't ask for it all. And then in return, if they feel that there's a value proposition for that, then they'll say, you know what, we could put more into this because I have X, Y, or Z. So it is a sales tactic, but it's also just good business because then they'll lead you to referrals for other opportunities. So yeah, that's a big thing just to kind of understand the differences there. So before I move on to talk about like the two major type of fixed index annuities, I will open it up real quick to see if anyone has any questions on the fundamentals and the basics of just general understanding of annuities. I did see the question, our index determined by policy anniversary dates. Yeah, basically it's point to point. Some carriers do send you a notice 30 days to before your anniversary to say kind of where you're at. So as a financial professional, you can say, all right, at this anniversary date, we may want to change it to something different. Uh, but up to you on your conversation with your client, because upon the anniversary date, it does go into renewal, and now you have, the asset being renewed back into that same asset class. So what I would say is it is important to, here's a trick of the trade for me. Anytime I make a sale, I use Outlook. If you use Google Calendar or Outlook, on the date that the policy is actually sold, the issue date or anniversary date, just put in your calendar for an anniversary, so say Philip Resch, policy number X, annuity. And, every year it'll remind you on your calendar when you have to look up that annuity is, or if you, plan your week in advance, you'll be able to see, kind of where it's at from that standpoint. So, that will help you, especially when it comes to reallocation of indexes. And we'll talk about that in just a second here in the accumulation. But yeah, that was a good question.
Phil, I think it's a very basic question.
Sure.
Annuity, is it more mainly for people who are 60 plus? So, for example, somebody who's in 40s, because some of those annuities don't give you that tax benefit. So, is it not better to have your IUL? Because even from IUL, after 65, if you draw income, it's tax free.
Part of
So,
it, and I mean, that's a great question. So, and when you compare the differences between life insurance and annuities, life insurance is going to give you that tax-free benefit, but you're going to pay on the charges inside the policy. With annuities, there are no charges if you pick the right indexes. So when you talk about raw power for growth, the IUL has to have a 15 to 30 year, trajectory for you to, make money off of it tax free. Whereas the annuity, you can do a 5, 7, or 10 year and walk away with growth. So it does when you talk about the client and the profile, if a client, I would literally say, so, hey, you got $100,000. We could, over the next 5 years, put 20,000 into a life insurance policy if you're in your 40s, like mid 40s or so. And then in 15 years, 20 years, here's what we got. But they might not want to do that. They might want to throw it all in at one time. We have premium deposit accounts for life insurance policies. But if they want less fees, because let's say 5 or 7 years from now, they don't want their break even with what they've invested to be what the cash value is. They want their break even to be year one, and they want it to grow from there. So there is a mindset change and difference because a lot of times, and sadly, I've seen this when I was a wholesaler, is I would talk to someone who was a client, now an agent, and they're like, hey, this was sold X, Y, and Z. And they say, I put in 20 grand and now my cash value is worth 15,000. What happened? And I'm like, there's fees, there's cash, there's load fees, there's administration fees, cost of insurance. So I always tell people with, accumulation IULs, the first 10 years really belong to the company and the objective of insurance because they have to recoup their loss. Because every policy an insurance company sells, they're making a loss on it. That's a different story for a different day. So you're overcoming a lot of fees in the beginning years. Once the 10-year mark hits, most carriers, their fees drop dramatically and the cash explodes. So you just have to get through that first 10 years, whereas an annuity, you're getting accumulation year one, two, hopefully, comparatively speaking. So that's the major difference between the two. It's long term versus short term, and just ultimately what's in the best interest for the client. And it's just explaining that. And yeah, Michael, you're correct. There is qualified and non-qualified. So, if someone, a big moneymaker for these is 401k rollovers. So if someone has money from a prior job, there's usually like 2% fees every single year, even if you're not adding money to it. So can we give you something that will give you, once again, market type returns? You don't have to think about it and no fees and let it do its thing. Then we have a good story. So that's usually where you see that for the younger clients is rollovers from prior jobs into an annuity, which is built in an IRA chassis.
I brought that up because as crazy as it sounds, there's agents out there telling 65-year-olds to roll their money over into an IUL, take the taxes, and it's insane for income, by the way, it's insane. Um,
That hurts to hear.
obviously estate planning is a whole different story, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so like, and it's a horizon of investments and timing, right? So like, I always tell people that if you're doing an IUL for accumulation, if you're younger, you can put less in because you have longevity. But if you're older, your longevity is shorter, so you have to put a bigger amount in and still give it time. So like, if I was talking to a 55 to 60-year-old person and they were willing to put in 20, 30, $50,000, whatever, for like a 5 or 10 year period, my objective would be this is to protect against a backstop against outliving your money with tax-free income. And you can use it and show illustrations from 80 to 90 as a backstop, but you also have the living benefits. So there's two values there. But to just simply do that for someone at 65, that's just like, the greasy car salesman kind of tactics. No offense to any people who sell cars. So, um, but yeah, that's so Vipul, did that kind of answer your question a little bit better?
Yes, it does, but I think it also uh, got me thinking about other questions.
Yeah.
So somebody who's 65 years old, so is annuity the best option for them? Because at that age, they can't get a life insurance, right? If they never
Yep.
had a life insurance, they are 65 plus.
Yep.
And I'll take an example of my parents. They don't have any insurance. They don't have anything. They have their savings from their earnings from their work years. So What is the investment? Like if I give them an option of annuity, they're like, okay, I have to pay 100,000. What I'm getting is 10,000 a year.
Yep. Well, that's actually a good segue to the next part. So we'll kind
Yeah.
of go from that. But yeah, I wouldn't do a tax-free life insurance as an opportunity.
Mhm.
Sorry, Michael. I just read Michael's you jerk. So yes, I
Got you.
you did. You got me good. So we'll talk about that Vipul here. So
Okay.
we'll push forward. So when we talk about the different types of annuities, the first one is an accumulation annuity. Okay. So bear in mind the ones I'm not talking about today are MIGAs, which stands for multi-year guaranteed annuity. It's basically like a CD, but at an insurance company instead. Okay. And I'm not talking about the old school annuities where you would fund it and then you would annuitize it, which basically means it's no longer your asset, it's the company's asset. People really don't annuitize their annuities anymore. They use riders, which we'll talk about in a minute. So there are other types of annuities out there. There's also just regular fixed annuities with an interest rate that can fluctuate, but it's fixed. And then you have variable, which are sold by broker dealers. So we cannot sell those. So we'll just kind of leave that at bay. So the major ones that we focus on, the major ones that we sell are accumulation annuities and income annuities. So when we look at accumulation annuities, really the mindset for this type of product here is growth of assets. Okay. So the benefits of these type of annuities typically offer higher par rates and higher cap rates, which you'll see in this column right here. Okay. We're not talking about the plus because that's a bonus. And again, every carrier has their niche, their bell and whistle, so to speak. And this carrier has been one of the most popular carriers for the last, like 2, 3, 4 years. So the cool thing though about what these do, again, higher pars, higher caps, once again, that downside protection that we always care about. Potential premium bonuses, we'll kind of have an educated conversation around that. And then some name brand recognition. So you think about names like Prudential, Lincoln, John Hancock. This is Athene, who's the number one annuity company in the country, still are, as well as many others. So these are things that will give clients peace of mind versus Joe's, annuity shop kind of thing. So you have the backing of major firms that have been around for a while. So just kind of looking at some of these participation rates, okay? So you'll see these percentages here. Now, what you'll also see is, for example's sake, the S&P 500 is actually 95%. So here's where, like, I really, really want you guys to dial in and understand an education on how these things work. When you have an index that is over 100%, they're usually not as aggressive as indexes that are below 100%. So if you want to hit more than you want to miss, you want to focus on ones that are around the 100% mark because those have a higher volatility or a higher risk. But when you think about it, really what you're dancing with here is the S&P 500. Okay. So understanding the type of risk that you're getting into would dictate where you want your funds to go. Now, a lot of people will see this 280% and say, holy cow, I want to do 280% because that's going to be an amazing return. If I get a 5% return, I'm going to get 280% of that. So when you when you think about that, it sounds great in theory, but it's not an aggressive index. So what happens is, and I'll give you a prime example. I had an Athene annuity that I leveraged and moved my money over from AIG to Athene when I left corporate, and I did a 2-year point-to-point strategy in 2022 because I thought 2023 would be pretty bad too. I have a 2-year longevity or 2-year track record to hopefully give me higher returns. And I had 3 out of 5 indexes in a 2-year point to point. The ones that actually hit were the S&P 500 that was below below 100%. I had 2 that were around 100 or below 100. They both hit. And I had 3 that were above at 280 and 320%, and they all hit zeros. So it's very hard to monitor and manage with these strategies that have such a high rate, but yet so many people, if you're not in trainings like this, there are so many people out there who are just seeing those numbers and be like, man, can you imagine if you hit 10% on 280% strategy? And it sounds great and all in theory, but once again, it's just something on paper to make it look better. So we just have to kind of break through what the company is giving you to understand what you should be talking about with your clients, because at the end of the day, there is a big difference between those. So a lot of times what I focus on, NASDAQ and the S&P. So if they have a good NASDAQ and they have a good S&P or a NASDAQ there, those are the things I would rather focus on because I feel it would give a better return and a better opportunity for my client versus just the standard, you know, uh, index strategies that basically are being created for these companies. And so also the S&P with a cap is good to have, just for benefit's sake. There are companies that do trigger of accounts. So say for example's sake, if 9.75, golly, this pen, if 9.75 was the trigger, so basically everything between 0 and 9.75 or everything above 9.75 would give you a 9.75% credit for the year. So if you have 1% return in your point-to-point strategy and you have a trigger account, it'll move it up to that 9.75 or whatever the trigger is. So Symetra has one. You have Lincoln that has one. And then there's some other really cool annuities that have come out in the accumulation space recently. We did a training on one, so you can go back to the YouTube channel if you want to see that. If you want to get contracted with that product, you got to let me know and I can send you the contracting request. But there's some cool updates. Anaco just came out with an update as well to their index. So if you apply today and in the first 90 days, they'll take the lowest point, and then that'll be your point-to-point strategy. So again, some companies are getting more aggressive per se in trying to get money in. So this is the accumulation side. Again, the main focus here that you want to think about is your cash that's being put in, the surrender schedule, and ultimately, what is the cash accumulation that you're going to get over time, dictated by the indexes that you pick.
Yeah.
And if there are any premium bonuses that are provided by the company, some will say the premium bonuses are free, but understand the wording. There's no such thing as a free lunch. And in these situations, most of the time, they will throttle your participation or cap rates when you get bonuses. Bonuses are usually for people who bought an annuity, say 10 years ago, and it's a dog with fleas, or not 10 years, say 5 years ago, and it's a dog with fleas, but there's a surrender charge. Well, the bonus should help wash away the surrender charge to get you to move the money. So they put these bonuses out to help people move money. Okay, so that's one side. So when you think about your client, Mr. and Mrs. Client, do you care more about accumulation of your assets, or do you care more about guarantees in income?
Can I ask you a question before you move on
Sure.
from accumulation?
Yeah.
Um, Back to that crediting rate chart. So
Yep.
if I were looking at that and possibly explaining it to a potential client or prospect, am I understanding you correctly by saying the higher those crediting rates, the way I read it when you said it was the higher those crediting rates are, the less likely it will actually happen. A positive outcome will actually happen.
In my opinion,
That's the
from
way
what
I'm
I've
thinking of it in
seen,
my head.
yes. So they're less aggressive. So you have a 280% par rate. That means it's probably going to be around a 2 or 3% return multiplied by 280. So they have to beef up the par rates to make it presentable and opportune for the client because it's not an
Yeah.
aggressive fund.
So that
So
fund is really not just going to be blowing it out of the water. So
no,
they're
it's
helping
not.
it along.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the best way to put it. You're correct.
Do your research.
I know. That's what it always comes down to. And
Do your research.
we'll show you a cool tool that you can use to kind of see that too. So Shalaka, your question for an 81-year-old person. Yes, we can do 81-year-olds, depending on what they're looking for. MIGAs, income, or annuities for accumulation could fit in there once again, depending on the client's need, right?
Probably accumulation, I will say. They are
Yeah.
looking for accumulation.
So we could look at a couple options, one that could involve some money in the fixed account, so they're going to be guaranteed hit every year, and then other part of it in like an S&P. So I will warn everybody on the call because we're all producers. When your clients hit over 80, most of the time there's a major comp hit because of the age of the client. So because it's less utilization or opportunity for the insurance company to use their money, so to speak. So there is usually a comp hit when some are 76 to 81 and then 81 and up. Some are 80 and up. So just depends. But I always like to kind of share that with people so they're not like, why the hell am I doing this then? So but yeah, we can definitely look at that. Um
So
on the
Phil,
flip
I have
side,
a question.
yeah, go ahead, Prasanna.
So on the previous chart, like whatever we've seen, right? When you run an illustration and look at this, the performance of these indices, they
Yep,
are on par with S&P. Like whatever 20-year performance that you look at and the rate of return that they are showing in this chart and during good times and bad times.
yep.
They have performed on par, and what I hear from you, like BNP Paribas, 280% rate of return, that might not be a good selection. That's what you're
Correct.
saying. But when you look at the chart, the rate of return every year compared to S&P, it's on par. So how do you? Uh,
So the best way to put that is that if you look at charts, especially made by the companies, how old is the BNP Paribas? It's probably like 4 years old ish. So when you look at that, it looks fantastic when they backtrack it without it actually being active. It's like if I like Back to the Future 2, I have that sports book and I bring the sports book back to old me to bet on a game so I can become super rich. That's what back testing really is. They're picking and cherry picking the best times. And yeah, they're showing some downs and ups, but the fact of the matter is um and I'm not just picking on the BNP Paribas. I'm just saying normally when you talk about higher rates like that, you'll see less of a growth trajectory. And I actually apologize too because I didn't realize I was looking at the charge. So that's the one with the charge. If you didn't have a charge, it would be over here. So those are the ones I usually look at more as well because now you're not having a 1.25% asset charge on your cash value, not on the returns, but on the cash value of your policy to give you a higher possible opportunity. So even here, 89 and 70% for S&P and NASDAQ, once again, showing that it's more of an aggressive index compared to the other ones.
Phil.
Yo,
The BNP Paribas has been around since 2016. and the average return is 2.6%.
So, and I'm assuming you probably did the Google to find that out. You went on their,
I have a whole chart that shows me all the indexes, so
okay.
I just look it up. Yeah,
Yeah.
live dates, histories, everything.
So that's what I would say is there's a lot of questions around the proprietary indexes. And Shalaka, your question about the difference between S&P 500 FC index and S&P 500 SPX. Really, from that standpoint, I wouldn't get too worried about that. I would just look for the phrasing of the S&P 500 because it's going to mirror the index, but again, it's still not in the actual S&P 500. So they're just using their own internal phrasing for that. A lot of good questions. So let's make it more complicated. So income annuities adds um, an extra parameter to what you're going to look at for your customer. Again, this customer is more focused on guaranteed income versus anything else. Okay. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't have guaranteed cash growth and guaranteed income. Okay. So, what typically happens is the major focus is on income. And in return for that income, you are sacrificing cash growth. So if we go back and we look here at the S&P 500 at a 70% par, or even better, let's look at the S&P 500 at a 7% cap, right? Right there. If we did that in the income annuities, you're going to get a 5% cap or maybe a 3.25% cap. It will be a lot less because what you're doing is you're sacrificing that growth to get a guaranteed benefit base. The benefit base is what you'll see. This is an old chart from Corebridge when they had 10% every single year because interest rates can fluctuate. That can actually dictate what type of guaranteed roll-ups you get from your carriers. But you're getting a guaranteed 10% in this example, and you'll see the phrasing here on the income base. Okay. So for back in the day, I'll use a good example. Uh, Say you're going to Disney World. And when you go to Disney World, you can give your dollar in to get a Mickey buck. It's the same thing, just with Mickey's face on it, but you can only use it at Disney. Okay. What you're doing here is you're exchanging your real money to an insurance carrier. They're giving you a guaranteed roll-up rate on a benefit base. That benefit base can only be used inside of that insurance company. Like if you want to cash it out, that benefit base would not be something that you would put in your pocket. So when you think about what a benefit base is, it's like Mickey bucks or Monopoly money. It's basically an indicator that at the time where you elect to take income, the company will say you have a withdrawal rate of 8% of whatever that benefit base is to give you that guaranteed income for the rest of your life. Okay. So the idea with this is, again, people are afraid that they're going to run out of money. And when they're afraid they're going to run out of money, what we have here is what some people call it a private pension plan. Okay. You can't run out of money because the carrier is guaranteeing you, in this example, $28,000 for the rest of your life. If you have a spouse and you want to do joint income, so let's say a husband might be uninsurable and he wants his wife to have all guarantees upon passing. So they write a joint annuity knowing that they're going to get, say, $100,000 a year for the rest of both of their lives. And so when he passes, he knows that she'll still at least have a six-figure income coming in until she passes and then the annuity is done. Okay. So those are some of the major benefits because we want to close off or provide peace of mind for that customer so they know that they don't have to worry about certain things. could an annuity cover fixed costs like rent? Maybe they don't want to live in a house anymore. They want to live in an apartment that's fully furnished and handicap ready, things like that, but assisted living. Pay for your car bill, pay for electric, water, all of those basics. So you have that locked down. And then maybe they have another set of money for fund money or investments or other stuff like that. So there's different ways that people will position income annuities. And then there's other people who will tier them. You start out with 100,000 and you take income at 65. You do another annuity, 100,000, take it at 67, and it tiers up. So people will do ladders of different annuities to help people get guaranteed income at other durations and times. So it's a different way to kind of think about how to utilize these. Now, what I'll show you here is, all of this is fine and dandy. It's always good to understand, what's out there. But if you don't have this at your fingertips, or you now have a client, you're like, oh, shoot, what do I do now? Well, that's the next step. So, what I want to share with you over the next, 13 minutes is the freeway. Okay. So, for those who are part of the Valor organization, design, setup. We use 3Mark as our back office. So we farm them out to give us technology like submitting business, LNC, case management. So all of that is built into the structure so you don't have to pay for it. So in this structure, in this setup, if we wanted to look up an income solve for, say, annuities, okay, under the annuities tab.
Phil, can I ask a question?
Sure. What's up?
Yeah. In that example, it shows that at 75, but isn't that under that because annuities are deferred in tax? So you have to, whatever your entry is, you have to start minimum distribution at 71 and a half?
It's 72,
72.
72 and a half. So if you do that, so usually if you're taking money out of these, it should cover your RMD if you're taking out guaranteed income. So for the most part, the RMDs, even though they tier up, if you're using it for your normal income, then it should cover most or all of your RMD. If not, if this doesn't cover all of it, that means you have done very well for yourself and you'd have to pull it from an IRA or some type of brokerage account. So it just depends.
Okay.
Yeah. And a lot of these are political answers, so I apologize. But so I went to annuities, which is under Product Solutions Annuities, under Luma. Click on Luma, brings you to this page. And then I want to click on so here I clicked on start an income comparison. So Luma can do income comparisons. Again, free for you to utilize. You want to pick on the fixed index annuity. And let's just say I have 250,000 and I am in Tennessee and I am 60 and I want to take income at 70. Okay. I don't want to do a joint annuitant. I'm selfish. I want to do it just on me because it's all about me. So this will give you a full-blown comparison. The only thing you want to do is change this income reduced to no, because watch the Corebridge at 47.5 is at the top. When I hit no and hit apply, they're gone because they have this tiered up. And then once your actual cash value is gone, it drops down below what this would be. So in this situation, for me, Phil Resch, 60 years old, taking income 10 years later, Global Atlantic with their 4 income 2 is going to give me $39,375 guaranteed per month. So as you can see, the 0% scenario, guaranteed, guaranteed, guaranteed. Then you got Corebridge with the Power 7, you got Protective, American Equity. So some people would like to play favorites with certain carriers. I don't. I like to make sure I'm giving the best value to the client. That also competitor proofs your practice from that standpoint. So this is really good when it comes to income scenarios, and all you have to do is hit apply, and here's Firelight. Okay, so if you've already done your carrier training, because again, with annuities, you have to do carrier training, and get appointed, you can go right in here and start the application process. Okay. Now, for those who want to take your game to the next level, we do also utilize Annuities Genius, which is something that is a pay for subscription. This is a $250 value that you can use for, I have it for you for $165. So we'll use Mr. 65-year-old, which I put in yesterday. And I'm going to edit this and go back and say I am 60 and I have 200, oh, not 10 million, 200,000 in a traditional IRA. And I'm going to hit update client. And the reason why I like this software is I can go to what we call our annuity navigator, which is right here, and I can actually shop several carriers all up front. Just give me a second here. Kids are home, so they're grinding out on the video games, unfortunately, so it hits my internet speeds, so apologies. But let's say I want to do an income solve for this client. So I'll look at lifetime income on the 60-year-old, 200,000. Next step, move the money one time. Next step, single male. Again, I'm selfish. And I want to take income at 70, like I mentioned before. Next step, start stable, predictable income. Next step, A minus or better. And then it's going to start calculating a bunch of different annuities for me. So, there's over 200 annuities in the industry. So I'm going to have them do all the work. And the reason why I like the software, two reasons. One, right off the bat, it had me help a client who was taking income already, guaranteed income, and we were able to give them more income. So we moved $1 million from Athene, no, Global, to a company called National Western Life. Now, in that scenario, if I didn't have the software, I wouldn't have even looked up National Western Life. I don't even know who the heck they are. So you'll see here that I have a few carriers that were not on that sheet with 3-Mark. So I have contracts that are outside of 3-Mark, like Delaware Life, like the Nationwide and Nexus products. North American is in the 3-Mark platform. So under special conditions for people who are brokers, and you want to sell these products, we can get you these products, no problem. If you have a hierarchy structure and you're looking to build it out, different story, we'd have to talk about that. So these are exception based. But what you'll see here is if I want to explore all options with this, again, income starts at 70. Not all products are created the same. So if I showed you, for example's sake, I'll check Delaware Life here. I'll check Nationwide. Now you'll see 10, 9, and 8. If it's guaranteed income, 10's going to pay me the best, and the client's really not losing anything. So I'm not doing a disservice from that standpoint. And let's just take the North American. This is the cool thing about this software. So if I hit download report and detailed report here, click download for comparison. Slowly but surely, as that pulls up. All right, thank God. So I'm going to skip to the third page here, and it's going to show you a comparison. So if my client wants to take out money at 70, Delaware Life makes the most sense. If my client wants to take out money at almost any other time, then the Nationwide product makes more sense. So it's all about understanding what you got and when you want to take money out, or in the beginning, North American wins. But here's the other thing, okay? Is this the most important part, the 33,924? Or let's say your client's like, oh, after seeing this, I want Nationwide because it's 65. I'll get 21,000 versus 19,900. Okay, fair assessment. In this scenario, if you look at someone who has 2 out of 6 activities of daily living that they can't use anymore, Delaware Life will give you a doubler. 39,935 Nationwide does not have that. Okay. So what are you giving up for higher income? Or in this scenario, you're getting the best of both worlds because you took it out at 70. You get the doubler if you need it, and North American has it as well. So in this scenario, you can see there are different setups for different types of clients. And so that's why, some people have said to me in the past, they're like, "Well, Phil, what's the best annuity? What's the best annuity carrier?" I'm like, "It depends." So I get very, very political with that because it definitely depends. And if you don't have the right software, you're not going to be able to give the client prudently what's the best value for them, especially in the income space. The accumulation space, that is a completely different animal because there's a lot of perception in that. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And, from that standpoint, what I would say is pick a few bell cow carriers to really master because, again, illustrations just prove that ink sticks to paper. But if you like the foundation of what they're giving you from an index strategy, that to me means more than, what looks the best because Athene, and I know this for a fact, Athene would do a situation where they would show 10 years of back testing. And, this was when I was an RVP, and this is before 2020 and stuff like that. They did 10-year back testing. Well, that was really good market performance. And they would do 10-year, 10-year, and 10-year. So back testing 10-year 3 times, and they would kill everyone because other carriers would do 15 years of back testing on their illustrations and it just wouldn't look as good. So when it comes to income annuities, uh, I like to look at the guaranteed tabs. When it comes to accumulation annuities, there's select people that I'll look at first for transparency. The other thing that I would say for this is you won't see it here, but when you have the accumulation annuities, there's a little dial or a tab that says live, and it'll show you live, actual returns for as long as since inception. So some cool stuff from that. I saw some questions in the chat. So Shalak, your question was, is there something like Luma for IULs? So Prasanna is right. WinFlex can do that, but there's a lot of manual entry. We have partnered with another source called Ensight, which is normally, if you're going at them, you have to buy 2 chairs, and it's $500. And so with the $500, I can give you Insight, which will give you presentations and multi-carrier illustrations quickly for $200 a month. So you would save some money on that. 200, 210, somewhere in there. So does Delaware Life have a guaranteed rate of return? So the cool thing here is you can look up the info on the product. So, it'll give you all the information on the product here, Precision Core, all their index strategies, and the riders. So they have a compound roll-up rate. Okay, so it's not there. If I want to illustrate it by itself, so if you're talking about a guaranteed rate of return, the guarantees are 0%. So there's no guarantee when it comes to the indexing strategies. But because this is a accumulation or an income product, to me, a guaranteed rate of return doesn't matter. The lifetime withdrawal rate is what matters the most. So that's why I would say that's the most important part. And it has a long-term care feature in it too. So if you're interested in this product, we do have it, as well. Like I said, if you're at street level or above, no problem. We can get it to easy peasy. If you're part of a team, we have to talk about that if you're lower than street. So we'd have to figure that part out. But that being said, a lot of good information here, a lot of good stuff. The cool thing is most of the people in here who, if you have your leaders or part of people in Valor who have an agency structure set up, have this too. So if you want to ask them to run the annuity quotes for you quickly, that's part of the benefit of them being there for you. So This stuff has helped me out so much. We did about 12 million in annuities last year, and I think we're already at 12 for this year. So, this stuff has really helped increase that opportunity, and it's, obviously a little over halfway, So that being said, any additional questions? I know we're kind of in overtime. It's 5:01, but we did start a little late. Are there any other questions, like quick ones that I can answer?
Yeah, Phil, I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, what's up?
Or you can categorize them as stupid questions.
No, no stupid questions. So, what's
So,
up?
like, in your experience, have you seen anything like this annuity companies changing the fine print on customers, like
They can't.
you know, changing the minimum, like this example that we have seen as 38,000 as income.
Yeah,
Do they
they
stick to
can't.
that one?
Yeah, it's contractually written. So, if that were the case, you could pick any lawyer who wants to sue an insurance company and you'll make a lot of money. So they cannot fix that or change that. So it is the minute you buy it, it's contractually written and it's good as gold. So the big thing is, and I'll just kind of tell you guys now too, the annuity companies are interest rate sensitive. And we've been in a high interest rate, or high because we were in a really low interest rate environment for a while. We're actually where the average should be, but considered high for most people. When the interest rates go down, that will impact the guaranteed income strategies that are out there. So Nationwide alluded to that in a marketing piece, but it is 100% true. So if you have clients that were on the fence about guaranteed income, you'll have a better conversation now than later. Not to fearmonger or anything like that, but when interest rates go down, so do guarantees. So just to let you know.
So, follow-up question to that one. Have you seen any political impacts on those guarantees? Like,
No
any.
political. Yeah, no political impacts. It's interest rate sensitive. So if there's an interest rate change, that will fluctuate because when you think about this, the carriers are looking to get a certain profitability margin. And if they can't get that profitability margin, they don't have the ability to invest more in options. Therefore, the guarantees come down. So they have to stay conservative so they stay afloat. And so they have to make sure that they're following their horizon for staying profitable. And so if they have to throttle new products, they can, but they will not change old products. They can't.
Okay, so old products are grandfathered in.
Yeah, they're blessed with what they were provided from the sales point. Now, if it's an accumulation product and you have years where the lower interest rate environments, can they lower the participation cap rates? Absolutely. There are carriers that have done that in the past, F&G, and there are carriers that will do that in the future if they need to. So you just have to make sure that you're monitoring. That's why I like the income side more than the accumulation side, because there's guarantees in it. So that's, again, personal opinion, but everybody's different.
So, in terms of guarantees, what happens if the company gets acquired?
Nothing. The contract stays the same. So I'll give you a good example. So being in the industry almost 19 years now, I was around when the Hartford was purchased, by Prudential. Contracts all stayed the same. You just send your money to a different company. Corebridge separated and became their own company. Money's still the same. You're just sending it to a different wrapper, if you will, over the product. They have to hold tried and true to the products that were provided. And you have to think that there is a major profitability for companies to buy other people's books of business. The main reason why products like IULs are not profitable right off the bat is because there's high comps, high charges to build the products and everything that's paid out. And so they need a 10-year horizon to basically recoup that loss. Now, if I sold a bunch of product And then I'm like, you know what? I'm done with this. Like what the Hartford did, they said, I'm just going to do property and casualty now and not do life and annuity. Well, Prudential ate that up because all they're getting is that recurring revenue. They paid out no commissions. They did nothing but just pick up recurring revenue coming in. So buying blocks of business is actually healthy for the big dogs versus it actually not, if a company just calls it quits, no company, major company, again, no major company has ever filed Chapter 11 and called it a day. The only one that I've seen in the history that it was 2008, a company out of Virginia, Shenandoah Life, they called it quits and you had to file in order to get your money out, you had to file for a hardship. Otherwise, you couldn't get your money out. But again, very small company. And that goes back to all of us on this Zoom and anybody who watches this on the replay are probably getting emails from tons of people, marketing companies that only sell annuities like, hey, we got this special annuity that's giving a 5% return on a 2-year, MIGA. Come to find out it's like a F plus carrier. But, there's a ton of carriers out there that are trying to increase their value proposition. But that's why I stick with carriers in that higher echelon because I don't want to have that conversation with my client later on. And so usually when it's the big dogs and they want to get out of the business, they just sell it to another big dog who's got the assets and the value to uphold the contracts. So it's not a problem at all.
Got it. And one last question, I promise.
Sure. No worries.
So during this challenging digital era, how
Yeah.
secure are these accounts?
Oh, they're fine. Again, 2008 proved that insurance companies are more important than banks. So if anything, I would say your money is pretty secure here. Plus, it's backed by not the FDIC, which is only like 250,000. It's backed by the state and the NAIC or the insurance commissioners. So, Texas is like $1 million. So you have solid protection from the insurance commissioners as opposed to the FDIC.
But when it comes to your online accounts, with all the fraud and
Yeah, I mean,
hackings.
yeah, if someone fraudulently pulled money, yeah, you'll have the same situation where you can, protect yourself against stuff like that. So it's not like just because it's an insurance company doesn't mean there's no way to safeguard or protect that. So I don't see that to be a concern.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. And Roshni asked the question, who would be good for annuities? Again, someone who has moved money or has left a company, has an old 401k. That's a good conversation to have. People getting closer to retirement. I'll give you guys a good sales pitch. Start talking to your local library, maybe doing every Saturday a financial literacy campaign or conversation. Coffee talk with Phil Resch, or financial literacy with Phil Resch. Bring donuts and coffee and just come in and talk about, financial services, retirement readiness, and things like that. If you're in Florida, I mean, God help you if you can't do a Medicare/retirement, seminar, stuff like that to really help you grow from uncovering these opportunities. Turning 65s equals all sorts of annuity conversations that you have to have at a separate time. I get it, the rules and parameters of Medicare. So I just want to say that in case someone's like, Phil said, so it has to be a separate conversation. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I do appreciate the questions. This will be uploaded, once again, as always. We got the YouTube channel, so there are 159, now soon to be 160 monotone videos for you to take a listen to, subscribe, like, comment, share, whatever you want. But they'll all be uploaded here. We'll be back next week. So Wednesday night might be iffy for the back to basics because I'm traveling to Texas on Wednesday, but should be there for the back to basics. And then Thursday we got another afternoon training, so 4 o'clock. So appreciate it, guys. You have a great rest of your day. And if we don't talk, have a great weekend. So take care, guys.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.